I watched my own compliance report slide out of the shredder like cheap confetti. My signature, Wesley Vance, was sliced into gray curls. The subject line, retention violation, immediate action required, was chewed into silent strips. The machine hummed in the corner of the copy room. No one blinked. A facilities worker emptied the plastic bin, tied it with a quick knot, and rolled his gray cart toward the freight elevator. I stood there, holding a lukewarm cup of black coffee, and felt a quiet click inside my chest. It was the exact sound a seatbelt makes when it locks during a sudden stop. It was not anger, not fear, just the realization that something was finally over. I straightened the folders in my arms, ensuring the tabs faced outward, and walked back to my desk. For 12 years, my workstation had been a small island of order on a floor that worshipped speed and momentum. I was the risk officer at Vanguard Logistical Systems, a company that specialized in shipping customer freight across state lines. I kept a label maker next to my pens and ran a weekly audit trail that most executives treated like spam. People called me a hall monitor behind my back. To my face, they said I was thorough, using the same tone you use when a neighbor tells you they alphabetized their spice rack. I did not care. My job was simple: find the cracks, document them, and nudge people back to safe ground. If I was invisible, it meant we stayed out of the federal courtrooms. The merger talks with Titan Global Acquisitions began as a rumor in January and hardened into weekly calendar invites by March. Suddenly, our office was filled with consultants wearing tight smiles. Slides bloomed with words like synergy and runway. There was a countdown clock on our intranet landing page. Every department started polishing their numbers to look attractive for the buyer. I adjusted my reports accordingly. I stripped them of adjectives and filled them with data. I attached specific regulations, like 17 USC, paragraph 106 regarding proprietary transport software, and sent them up the ladder. In response, I got thumbs up emojis. Once the operations team sent a fire emoji. I printed that one and taped it inside a folder just to remind myself of the absurdity. I was loyal. I liked my paycheck, but I also believed in the quiet contract of compliance. If you did the right thing, the floor would hold. I came in early, left late, and kept my head down. When people ignored my alerts, I kept logging them. When they rolled their eyes, I smiled. It was muscle memory. I had rules for myself. Never send an email you would not want read aloud in front of a federal judge. Never say minor variance when you mean legal risk. The first warning sign was small. A calendar invite for a meeting called Controls Deep Dive flickered on my screen and then vanished. When I asked the organizer, they sent back a message saying they would sync me in later. They added 2 exclamation points, which worked like air freshener. Strong scent, but no actual cleaning. I made a note in my log. I always made a log. Then the file started disappearing. On Monday, my directory for international shipping exceptions had 87 records. On Wednesday, it had 82. When I asked the database admin, he told me they were consolidating files for the merger transition. I ran the audit trail myself. A guest admin account, linked to a device assigned to Bradley Miller, our director of operations, had deleted the files at 11:14 p.m. One of those files was the security compliance record for an overseas vendor who handled sensitive customer data. Our general counsel, Sarah Jenkins, also started acting strange. She usually replied to my emails at 6 a.m. with sharp, clinical sentences. Suddenly, she stopped writing. She started calling my personal cell phone saying, "Let us just talk this one through, Wesley." The first time it felt polite. By the third time it felt like a heavy blanket thrown over a fire. After every call, I opened a text file on my local drive and typed the summary. April 10, 9:02 a.m. Phone call with Sarah Jenkins. Storage limit exception. Verbal approval only. I did not file them in the main system, but I did not delete them either. During a walkthrough with operations, I handed out a checklist of non-negotiable compliance standards. Bradley Miller, who had recently started wearing custom suits at his desk, smiled at me with all his teeth. "We are streamlining, Wesley," he said. "No loose ends." The junior analyst laughed like he had told a joke. I felt the tide go out. I smiled back because that is what you do when the sky is black and someone tells you it is a sunny day. By Friday, my name was removed from the merger diligence invites. I knew because I kept a physical paper calendar in a blue binder that mirrored my digital one. The penciled box on my paper was empty on my screen. The junior analyst assigned to support me, Justin Ward, began hovering behind my chair. He asked me what the shortest version of the risk register looked like. I told him there was a version that would fit on a slide, and a version that would keep us out of federal prison. His smile faded. I did not apologize. I pointed to a vendor contract on my screen. If we pretend this violation does not exist, we own it, I told him, and owning it will cost us more than fixing it now. He nodded. But I could tell he was just waiting for me to finish speaking so he could go back to his desk. The office hummed with the nervous energy of a company preparing for a buyout. Phones chirped, and people laughed too loud in the hallways about small wins. My phone vibrated with a text from George Henderson, a friend in compliance. Heads up, he wrote. Ops is trying to reclassify your Q1 and Q3 risk reports as advisory guidelines rather than mandatory controls. It feels off. I stared at the screen for a minute. I typed, "Thanks for the ping. I will document it." I deleted my first draft, which was far less polite. At 3 p.m., Sarah Jenkins' assistant sent a meeting invite labeled Quick Sync. We met in a conference room with glass walls that looked out over the parking lot. The assistant cleared her throat. "We want to ensure our language matches the excitement of this merger," she said. "Words like breach and violation feel too heavy for the diligence files." I pressed my thumb into the plastic cap of my pen until the skin turned white. "Words like breach and violation are legally accurate," I said. "If the board is worried about how those words feel, we should resolve the issues that made them necessary." She smiled, the kind of smile you use to smooth a messy bedspread. "Of course," she said, "but maybe we can use the term variance instead?" I thought of my shredded memo. "I will keep using the vocabulary that matches our corporate policies," I replied. I knew what they were doing. They wanted to sanitize the record so that when the acquirer's auditors looked at the files, everything would look like minor administrative discrepancies rather than systemic compliance failures. When the sync ended, I logged the time, the names, and the exact phrasing. I was tired, but it was the exhaustion of a runner who knew the terrain. My loyalty was built on small daily routines. I checked the system logs before breakfast. I flagged misaligned numbers for finance. I sent calm replies to panicked emails at midnight. The executives did not want to hear the truth, but the servers did not lie. Logs were honest. On Tuesday, Bradley Miller stopped by my desk. He set down a branded steel water bottle. "For all the extra hours you put in, Wesley," he said, dropping his voice as he leaned against my partition. "We appreciate your focus on detail, truly. But we are in a very delicate phase. We need to be careful about what we put in writing. Let us keep the machine moving." I looked at the water bottle, then at him. "The machine runs better when the bolts are tight, Bradley," I said. He laughed and walked away, saying I would be fine. In corporate speak, "you will be fine" always means someone has just moved the goalposts. That night, when the floor was dark, I sat at my computer. I had a draft memo with 4 bullet points, dates, and links to our data transfer policies. It was simple, factual, and completely free of accusations. I moved 1 comma, saved it, and sent it to the operations list. I drew a small black dot in the corner of my paper calendar. On my way out, I looked at the shredder bin. It was full of paper curls. You could have built a monument out of them, but it would not change the facts. As I waited for the elevator, a sales rep asked if I was excited for the merger to close. I told him I was ready. The elevator went down smoothly, and I realized that being ready has nothing to do with being excited. When I got to my car, my phone buzzed. The controls meeting series had been canceled. "Redundant," the digital note said. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at the screen. Redundant, like a seatbelt after the windshield has shattered. I took a screenshot of the cancellation notice. On Monday morning at 6:47 a.m., I tried to log into the compliance dashboard. The screen showed an unauthorized access error. I refreshed the browser, but the red text remained. I opened the IT support system and typed a ticket, assuming it was a routine permissions error. I hit send, even though my stomach knew the truth. Access is rarely lost by accident. It is usually reassigned to someone who does not ask questions. At 9 a.m., my calendar pinged with an invite for a quick discussion in Aspen, the glass conference room. Bradley Miller arrived 10 minutes late, carrying 2 coffees, neither of which was for me. He did not sit. He hovered near the glass wall, looking down at me. "We are moving quickly now, Wesley," he said. Big changes, positive ones. We are streamlining, and that means reassigning some responsibilities. Nothing personal. Who is managing the international compliance queue? I asked. Thomas, he said, smiling. He is efficient. Thomas is a junior analyst who asked me last week if data sovereignty meant we needed a new website host, I said. Bradley did not flinch. We are just ensuring we do not gatekeep knowledge, he said. No loose ends. He winked at me as if we were sharing a secret and walked out. I sat in the room for 2 minutes after he left. I wrote one sentence on my notepad. This is not a transition. It is an erasure. I knew my presence had become an obstacle to their timeline. They wanted a frictionless road to the payout, and they were willing to sweep anything, including 12 years of diligence, under the rug to get it. That night, I opened my personal laptop. I did not use my company-issued machine, which the IT department could lock or wipe remotely. I plugged in my external drive, a silver casing scratched from years of use, labeled archive in my own handwriting. I began transferring files. This was not a panic dump, it was a precise clinical extraction. I pulled email headers, system logs, metadata, and signed compliance waivers. I left out my own opinions. I kept the documents that had names, dates, and stamps. I categorized them in folders: retention exceptions, undocumented changes, and uncodified verbal approvals. I built an index in a local spreadsheet, complete with the original server paths. By 1:30 a.m., my neck was stiff, but my mind was clear. They were not just restructuring. They were trying to paint over my footprints, and I was not going to let them pretend the floor was always clean. Over the next 2 days, I helped Justin Ward with the transition. I showed him how to verify vendor logs and read between the lines of Sarah Jenkins' legal approvals. I did not withhold anything. If he was going to hold the wheel, I wanted him to see the road. But every night, I copied my daily work files to a flash drive in my pocket. It was not proprietary code or trade secrets. It was simply the record of the warnings I had sent, which were now being deleted from the company's servers. On Wednesday afternoon, HR sent an invite to discuss my role in the new structure. I accepted it. I also printed a summary of the Q1 to Q3 high-risk vendors and placed it in a plain envelope inside my leather bag. In the break room, Bradley Miller was celebrating with a special lager he had ordered for the merger prep. He raised his bottle to me. "To fresh starts, Wesley," he said. "To clean exits," I replied. On Thursday morning at 8 a.m., the calendar invite arrived. Subject: urgent staffing realignment discussion. When I walked into the Aspen room, the table was bare. Brenda Cole, the HR manager, sat next to Sarah Jenkins and a representative from operations. "This will not take long," Brenda said, sliding a folder toward me. "They did not offer coffee. As you know, the company is preparing for the merger with Titan Global Acquisitions," Brenda read from a script. "As a result, we are evaluating our risk oversight function. Your position is being dissolved as of 10 a.m. today." Dissolved, I thought. "Like salt in water, your severance package includes 3 months of base pay, which is $45,000, Brenda continued. "It is contingent on your signing a 6-month non-disclosure agreement covering all activities prior to the close." 6 months, I said. "The merger closes in 7 weeks. "It is standard protocol," Sarah Jenkins added, her voice smooth and empty. I looked at the paperwork. I did not pick up the pen. Under the Older Workers Benefit Protection Act, I knew I had 21 days to review this document and another 7 days to revoke it if I signed, but I had no intention of signing. Signing would buy my silence for $45,000, and my silence was worth much more than that. I knew my rights under federal whistleblower statutes, and I was not about to trade them for a pittance. "Your system access has been revoked," Brenda said. "We have already packed your personal belongings, and a facilities escort is waiting outside." Through the glass, I saw Randy from maintenance holding a cardboard box. "That is not necessary," I said, standing up. "I will walk out on my own." Sarah Jenkins nodded to Brenda. "Very well," she said. I looked at Sarah. "You wiped my drive before I even entered the room, didn't you?" "It is standard security protocol," she said. I smiled. I was typing a compliance addendum when the invite appeared. The screen froze. "You pulled the connection while I was still working." "We appreciate your years of service," Brenda said, using the voice she used for retirement announcements. "Do not mistake my silence for compliance," I told them. I picked up my personal bag and walked out. I did not slam the door. Slamming doors makes people feel like they won an argument. I gave them nothing but my back. I walked down the long hallway. I knew every corner of this floor. I knew which vendors had failed their audits and which executives had signed off on the exceptions. I was the memory of the company, and they were trying to treat memory like a virus. My desk monitor was black. My box contained a cracked coffee mug, 3 notebooks, and a framed photo of my niece. No one looked at me. They had all received the email announcing my departure and were too afraid to meet my eyes. I picked up the box and walked to the elevator. As the doors closed, my personal phone buzzed. My sister had sent a text. "Are you still coming to the lake house this weekend?" "We have your favorite snacks, absolutely," I typed back. My reflection in the elevator doors was calm, but beneath the surface, the weight of the last 12 years was turning into momentum. They had no idea what they had just set in motion. I did not go to the lake house right away. I went home, set my cardboard box by the door, and sat at my kitchen counter. I moved the fruit bowl aside and opened my personal laptop. I downloaded the encrypted zip file I had sent to my personal email 4 months ago as a backup. The spreadsheet opened. It was a clean gray grid of rows and columns. No charts, no colors, just the record of ignored warnings. There were columns for date, team, policy violated, potential financial exposure, and resolution. The resolution column was a long list of blank spaces, with occasional notes like deferred by operations or verbal approval by General Counsel, row 27. The operations team bypassing two-factor authentication for a shipping vendor because it slowed down their delivery metrics, row 46. The customer data leak that legal classified as a temporary network error, row 58. The safety audit that was deleted after the inspector resigned. At row 63, I stopped. It was the contract expansion with an overseas data processor, executed without regulatory approval. I had flagged it in June. Bradley Miller had told me to let it go because the merger would make us too rich to care about regional compliance. I opened my local folder. I had the entire email chain, my warnings, Bradley's replies, and Sarah Jenkins' message instructing the team to delete the draft versions. I opened a new text document and began writing. I titled it, Q3 Risk Register. Material Discrepancies in Due Diligence Representations. Prepared by Wesley Vance, Compliance Lead. I spent the night matching every log entry to a physical exhibit. I did not use emotional language. I did not call them thieves or liars. I let the data do the talking. I attached email headers, meeting records, and PDF files. At 1 a.m., I took a short walk around my apartment. The city was quiet. My heart rate was slow and steady. The anger had evaporated, replaced by a cold, clear focus. I sat down and sent a message to my brother-in-law, Donald, who worked as an auditor for a federal regulatory agency. I attached the draft and the index of files. He called me 15 minutes later. "Wesley," he said, his voice quiet, "is this metadata verified?" "Every file has a SHA-256 hash," I told him, "and I have the original timestamps notarized on the blockchain." "This is not just negligence," Donald said. "This is a direct violation of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, specifically 18 U.S.C., paragraph 1514a. They are actively concealing material liabilities from their board and the buyer. Under SEC Rule 21F17, the NDA they tried to give you is completely unenforceable because it attempts to restrict you from reporting securities violations. If Titan Global signs this merger deal, they are buying a $100 million lawsuit." He explained the details of the law. Under Section 802 of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, anyone who alters, destroys, or conceals a document with the intent to obstruct a federal investigation can face up to 20 years in federal prison. And since Bradley Miller used a guest administrator account to delete compliance logs, he also violated California Penal Code Section 470 regarding the forgery and alteration of data. "I know," I said. "I ran the database audit trail before they cut my access. I have the IP address logs and the machine IDs. Are you sending this to the SEC?" he asked. "First, I am sending it to the board," I replied. "At the right time. They need to understand that the representations they are making in the merger filings are false. If they sign off on those filings, the board members themselves will be personally liable for securities fraud. If I were on that board, I would be calling criminal defense lawyers." "By page 5, Donald said, "you have documented a pattern of deliberate concealment that goes all the way to the top of operations and legal." I smiled. They will have plenty of time to read it. By 3 a.m., the PDF was complete. It was a single 67-page document. Every exhibit was linked to an encrypted cloud drive with read-only access. The folder contained the raw EML email files, the original CSV database dumps, and screenshots of the chat logs where Sarah Jenkins told me to bury the vendor audit files. I opened my email client. I entered the distribution address for the board of directors, a private list that was kept off the main directory subject. Ignored warnings, Q3 compliance exposure. Baby, you have been misinformed. I did not hit send. I scheduled the message for next Thursday at 5:01 p.m. Why next Thursday? Because under the Older Workers Benefit Protection Act, my 7-day revocation window for the unsigned severance package would expire at 5:00 p.m. At 5:01 p.m., I would officially walk away from their $45,000, and they would realize that they no longer owned my silence. The clock was ticking, and they had no idea that their exit strategy was about to collide with a wall of facts. I shut my laptop and went to bed. I slept for 8 hours without waking up. The fire had burned out, leaving behind only the ash and the clean, hard steel of what was left. During the week after my termination, Vanguard Logistical Systems' corporate social media was full of updates. The new leadership team posted photos of themselves smiling in front of the glass walls of Aspen. The caption spoke of fresh starts, synergy, and clean transitions. The phrase clean transition was repeated like a mantra. I did not post, I did not comment. I watched the names appear, matching them to my lists. I saw Justin Ward post a screenshot of the new automated compliance dashboard, claiming he had streamlined the entire workflow. Then came the official press release. Vanguard Logistical Systems announces clean transition ahead of merger. The release claimed there was no legacy debt or institutional baggage remaining, as they entered the final stages of the transaction with Titan Global Acquisitions. No legacy debt. No institutional baggage. On Wednesday, George Henderson texted me again. They deleted your entire directory from the shared drive, he wrote. The Q3 files are gone. It is like you were never here, I replied. Noted. Keep your head down. On Thursday at 4:59 p.m., I sat on the porch of the lake house. The air was cool and the water was still. My laptop was open. The scheduled email was ready in the queue. p.m. The severance offer officially expired. 5:01 p.m. The email went out. At that exact moment, 18 floors up in the city center, the board of directors was concluding a joint presentation with Titan Global Acquisitions. Jonathan Clemens, the lead representative for the buyer, was praising the transparency of our operational team. The chairman, Nicholas Reynolds, sat at the head of the table. His laptop pinged. He opened the email from Wesley Vance. He read the subject line. Ignored warnings, Q3 compliance exposure. He opened the 67-page PDF. He scrolled through the first page, which listed the SHA-Tutor 56 hashes and the blockchain timestamps. By page 3, the color had drained from his face. By page 5, he was sweating. Under California Penal Code Section 470, the document showed clear evidence of compliance log forgery, with files being altered under Bradley Miller's account to hide international data transfer violations. Nicholas Reynolds muted his microphone on the conference call. He turned to his assistant. Get legal on the line, he whispered, his voice cracking. Now, find out where Wesley Vance is. My phone began vibrating at 5:07 p.m. The first call was from an unknown number. I did not answer. The second was from Sarah Jenkins' office. I turned the phone face down. By 5:20 p.m., the screen was a solid wall of notifications, calls, text messages, and voicemails. A voicemail from Sarah Jenkins played on speaker. Wesley, we received your document. We need to talk immediately. Please call me back. I deleted the message, a voicemail from Bradley Miller. Wesley, look, things got out of hand. We can work this out. If it is about the severance, we can increase the numbers. Just call me, I deleted that one too. By 6:08 p.m., George Henderson texted me. Merger is paused. Titan's compliance team just initiated a forensic audit. Bradley Miller was escorted out of the building 10 minutes ago. I did not reply. 3 days later, the phone rang again. This time, the caller ID showed Nicholas Reynolds' personal number. I picked it up. Wesley, the chairman said, his voice flat and exhausted. Your report was accurate. If we had signed that merger agreement, we would be facing federal indictments. We have initiated a full investigation. Bradley Miller has been terminated. Sarah Jenkins is stepping down. We want you back. I looked out at the lake. I will not return to my old job, I said. We can offer you an advisory role, Reynolds said quickly. Complete autonomy. You will report directly to the board. We will pay your full consulting rate. I have 3 conditions, I replied. Name them, he said. 1. Full back pay retroact to my termination date, paid as a lump sum consulting fee with no offsets. This includes my base salary of $180, 00, and the performance bonuses that were withheld. 2. A complete release of all liability and a signed indemnity agreement from the board. 3. My name does not appear on any public documentation, SEC filing, or internal directory. I remain invisible. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Understood, Reynolds said. My assistant will send the terms tonight. We will route the payments through an independent consulting firm to keep your name off our general ledger. I ended the call and put the phone in my pocket. The sun had gone down, leaving a thin red line on the horizon. The water was dark and silent. For years, they had wanted me to be invisible. They had wanted my warnings to disappear. Now they were paying me to remain in the shadows, protecting them from the very system they had tried to exploit. The difference was, I was no longer keeping their secrets. I was keeping the keys. I was the architect of their compliance, and they would pay me to ensure that the floor held, even if they had to crawl through the dark to find it.